Elias Kane adjusted the controls of the Vanguard, his prototype starship, with the calm precision of someone who had spent a lifetime learning to trust machines more than people. The Trian expanse stretched endlessly before him, a shimmering void of purple-tinged nebulae, jagged asteroid fields, and pockets of radiation that made even the most advanced sensors twitch nervously. Most pilots avoided this sector, calling it unpredictable and dangerous, but Elias had a habit of chasing the unknown. He believed in the thrill of discovery, in the quiet certainty that human ingenuity could navigate even the strangest corners of the galaxy. The Vanguard hummed under him, the soft vibration of its engines merging with the rhythm of his own heartbeat. Elias scanned the sector again, eyes flicking to the console displaying faint, irregular signals. A distress beacon blinked intermittently in the distance, its origin unmarked on any charts he had. It wasn't unusual to encounter random transmissions in the expanse, but this one had a distinct pattern, almost like a call for help. Elias leaned forward, curiosity sharpening his focus. "Looks like someone or something needs help," he muttered under his breath, "and I'm just the idiot to find it." Sensors flickered and beeped as Elias navigated carefully, each move precise. Despite the peril, there was a strange beauty here. Space had a way of humbling even the most confident explorers, and Elias felt the familiar thrill of venturing into the unknown. Then, through the mist and debris, he saw it. A massive shape moved with deliberate grace across the surface of an asteroid. At first, he thought it was some trick of the light, but as he adjusted the Vanguard's external cameras, the image became undeniable. An 8-foot-tall, wolf-like alien with iridescent fur, its body rippling with muscular precision, crouched as if ready to pounce. Its eyes, golden amber and unnervingly intelligent, locked onto his ship. A low growl vibrated through the comm system, not loud enough to harm, but heavy with intent. Elias swallowed, forcing himself to stay calm. He had seen some strange life forms during his years as a pilot, but nothing like this. Its fur shimmered under the faint starlight, and its movements were deliberate, almost ceremonial. It wasn't acting like a wild animal, not really. There was intelligence there, something that suggested recognition, curiosity, and danger all at once. "Easy now," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. He opened the ship's ramp slowly, careful not to make any sudden movements. "Safe with me, I won't bite." The words felt foolish, absurd even, but the alien's ears twitched at the sound. It tilted its head, still crouched, still tense, but it didn't attack. Elias took a small step forward, keeping his hands visible, palms open. The wolf-like creature inched closer, sniffing the air. Every muscle in Elias' body screamed at him to retreat, to fire some warning shot and keep a safe distance, but something about the alien's gaze made him hesitate. There was pain there, subtle but undeniable. Its shoulder bore a scar or maybe an injury. That explained the hesitancy, the wary approach. This wasn't a hunter looking for a fight. This was a wounded creature. He extended his hand slowly, watching every micro-expression on its face. The alien sniffed again, low growls vibrating in its throat. Then, with a cautious step, it pressed its snout against his palm. Elias exhaled, a laugh escaping him despite the tension. "Well, that's something." Whatever species it belonged to, it had intelligence, strategy, and strength. Humans had a lot of stories about apex predators, but they had never faced anything like this before. He gestured toward the ramp, a silent invitation. The creature's eyes flicked to the ship, then back to him, and Elias waited. Minutes stretched into eternity as the mist swirled around them, the only sounds the soft hum of his ship and the low, resonant growl that seemed almost like a questioning word. Finally, it stepped onto the ramp. Its weight pressed the metal slightly, but the Vanguard's engineering held. Elias guided it gently toward the ship's main cabin, keeping his movements slow, predictable, human. The alien paused halfway, sniffed the air again, and then followed. Once inside, Elias sealed the ramp. The ship's internal lights reflected off the alien's fur, turning it into a cascade of shifting colors. He activated the life support scanner. "You're alive, that's good," he muttered. Sensors confirmed elevated stress hormones, minor injuries, and rapid heart rate, or the alien equivalent. He retrieved the first aid kit from the storage compartment. As he tended to the creature's shoulder, applying a quick antiseptic solution, the alien flinched but did not resist. Elias noticed small, almost imperceptible gestures, subtle tilts of the head, flicks of the ears, shifts in posture. Communication was happening, just not in words humans could understand. "You've been through a lot, huh?" he said quietly, glancing at the scanner. "Some mercenary maybe, or worse." The alien growled softly, a sound that Elias interpreted as acknowledgement. It was clear the creature had been hunted, cornered, or experimented on human technology or otherwise. Elias' pulse quickened. This wasn't just a rescue. This was a first contact situation with something entirely new. Hours passed as Elias worked. The alien Rocco, as he would eventually name it, adapted to the ship. He observed the controls curiously, sniffing the consoles and sometimes placing a massive paw on Elias' shoulder as if to steady himself. Elias noted the dexterity of its limbs, the intelligence in its eyes. This was more than an animal. It was a sentient being capable of thought, strategy, and perhaps even trust. The ship's sensors soon picked up distant movement, a fleet approaching from the edge of the system. Elias frowned. The readings were faint but unmistakable, massive craft, likely military or mercenary, moving with intent. His heart sank. He hadn't realized just how exposed they were. Rocco's ears twitched and he emitted a low, warning growl. Elias nodded, understanding the signal. "Yeah," he whispered, tightening his grip on the control stick. "I see them too. We're not just hiding anymore." Elias realized something profound in that moment. They were about to face a threat neither had encountered alone, but together they might survive. Humans had never faced creatures like Rocco, and Rocco had never faced humans like Elias. Yet somehow, instinct, courage, and a shared understanding were bridging the gap between species. Elias plotted a course through the asteroid field, banking carefully to avoid debris. The approaching ships grew clearer on the sensors, sleek, black, mercenary-looking craft, armed and aggressive. Rocco's low growl echoed through the cabin, almost in rhythm with the ship's warning alarms. Elias felt a rush of adrenaline, not fear exactly, but sharp, alert excitement. This was why he flew. This was why humans survived in the galaxy, for the moments where courage and ingenuity were the only shields between life and oblivion. The alien shifted beside him, surprisingly responsive to the ship's movements. Elias noted how Rocco balanced perfectly, adapting instinctively to acceleration, gravity pulls, and centrifugal forces. He smiled. "Guess you've got talent for this too," he said, more to break the tension than anything else. Rocco responded with a short, approving growl. The hours stretched on. Elias guided the Vanguard deeper into the misted asteroid field, weaving between massive rocks with precision only humans with instinctive piloting skills could manage. He monitored the mercenary fleet, noting patterns, trying to predict their moves. Rocco stayed alert beside him, ears twitching, eyes scanning. There was no fear, only readiness and a strange, growing trust. Night fell in the asteroid field, though not like on Earth. Darkness was punctuated by distant stars, glimmering debris, and the faint purple glow of the nebulae. Elias leaned back in his seat, exhausted but alive, and watched Rocco. The alien's gaze softened slightly, the tension easing as though it recognized that it was no longer alone, no longer hunted. Elias whispered once more, the words almost ritualistic now, "Safe with me." "I won't bite." Rocco's ears flicked, his eyes locked on Elias', and for the first time the alien exhaled something like relief. Hours passed. The mercenaries didn't attack yet, perhaps waiting for an opportune moment. Elias knew they couldn't stay in one place for long. They would have to move to outthink and outrun their pursuers. But for now they were together, human and alien, pilot and predator, united by trust, necessity, and the fragile hope that ingenuity could triumph over force. Elias watched Rocco settle beside the console, muscles coiled but relaxed. For the first time in the expanse, the pilot realized something vital. Humanity had a chance not because of weapons or technology alone, but because of courage, empathy, and the will to survive. And for Rocco, it was the first time it had known safety, if only briefly, with a human. The asteroid field around them whispered and shifted, shadows crawling across metal and rock. Beyond, the purple mist stretched endlessly, hiding dangers and possibilities alike. Elias tapped the console, setting a slow, steady course toward the unknown, toward hope, and toward whatever adventure awaited next. Rocco's amber eyes followed the horizon, alert, intelligent, and strangely hopeful. The first night together ended with the ship humming softly, stars streaking past, and two beings from entirely different worlds bound by circumstance, instinct, and a fragile trust that might just survive the trials ahead. The story of Elias Kane and Rocco had begun, not as enemies, not even as allies, but as something entirely new. Something that promised discovery, courage, and the undeniable spark of humanity at its finest. Elias Kane had never felt so aware of his surroundings. Every flicker on the control panel, every vibration through the hull, Every subtle movement of Rocco beside him demanded attention. The mercenary fleet was still trailing them, and he knew from experience that these were not ordinary pirates. Their ships moved with purpose, scanning for any weakness, and Elias suspected that whatever they wanted, it was valuable enough to risk lives to acquire it. Rocco's growls had become a low hum of tension, a rhythm that mirrored Elias' own pulse. "All right," Elias muttered. "We need a plan." He scanned the asteroid field ahead, trying to map a route that would give him the advantage. The field was treacherous. Massive rocks floated unpredictably, and pockets of unstable gravitational anomalies made navigation tricky. But that was exactly the point. He could use the chaos to mask their movements, hide from sensors, and maybe even turn the hunters into the hunted. Rocco shifted beside him, sniffing the air and turning his head as if to suggest something. Elias glanced at him and chuckled softly. "You've got a better idea than mine, don't you?" The alien emitted a short, sharp bark-like sound, then padded toward the viewport, muscles tense but controlled. Elias realized with a start that Rocco seemed to be pointing out the safer paths, instinctively sensing areas where the asteroids could provide cover. He adjusted the ship's trajectory according to Rocco's subtle guidance. The Vanguard creaked as its engines pushed against the gravitational pulls, weaving through the massive rocks. The mercenary ships followed, at first confident, then hesitant as they struggled to match Elias' route. He allowed himself a brief smile. "Not bad for a first partnership, huh?" Rocco responded with a low growl as if acknowledging the compliment. Hours passed in careful maneuvering. The mercenaries were persistent, but Elias knew he had the advantage of familiarity with human piloting instincts and Rocco's heightened senses. At one point, a large rock shifted unexpectedly, nearly pinning the Vanguard. Elias' hands worked furiously on the controls, while Rocco leaped gracefully, pressing against the console with his paw to steady himself. His presence was both unnerving and reassuring. Elias had never shared a cockpit with a creature like this, yet somehow they were synchronizing. As night fell in the asteroid field, Elias decided it was time to rest briefly. The Vanguard wasn't fast enough to outrun them indefinitely, and the mercenaries would surely find a way to close the distance. "We need to find a safe place," he murmured to Rocco. The alien's ears twitched, and he padded toward a smaller, darker cluster of asteroids, signaling his approval. Elias smiled faintly. Somehow the wolf-like creature had a better understanding of danger zones than any sensor array he had. They approached a concealed cavern formed by a cluster of jagged asteroids. The entrance was narrow, invisible to scanners, and surrounded by shadows that the purple nebulae intensified. Elias guided the Vanguard inside, and for a moment the ship seemed swallowed by darkness. He powered down the external lights, leaving only the soft glow of the internal console. Rocco lowered his head, sniffing the air, and exhaled slowly, a sign of temporary relief. Elias crouched beside the alien, removing a small container of food he had packed for emergencies. "Hungry?" he asked. Rocco stared at him, then sniffed the offering. With a cautious paw, he accepted it, taking small bites. It was strange, watching such a powerful creature behave so delicately. Elias realized then how fragile trust could be even between species. One wrong move, one threat, and Rocco could destroy everything. Yet here he was, accepting humanity's kindness. The calm didn't last. Sensors beeped suddenly, picking up faint energy signatures moving outside. Elias' heart sank. "They're still out there," he whispered. Rocco's growl deepened, low and threatening. Elias examined the readings. The mercenaries were scanning, attempting to pinpoint the Vanguard's location. They were methodical, using every trick in their arsenal to flush him out. Elias needed to do more than hide. He needed a plan that could give them a real chance to escape. He studied the asteroid field, noting areas where gravitational anomalies could interfere with sensors and navigation systems. "We're going to use the terrain against them," he said. "We'll make them think we're trapped, and then—" He paused, realizing Rocco had already understood. The alien stepped closer, nose pointing toward a narrow gap between two massive rocks, a perfect trap. Elias grinned. "You've been holding out on me, huh?" Rocco responded with a sharp, approving growl. Elias adjusted the Vanguard's engines and slipped into the gap. The ship groaned as it threaded between the massive rocks, the gravity fields tugging at the hull. Outside, the mercenary ships attempted to follow, but their larger frames struggled in the tight space. Elias saw an opportunity. He activated a series of decoys, projecting multiple false energy signatures through the sensors. The mercenaries hesitated, trying to determine which was the real target. Rocco's muscles tensed beside him. The alien leaped onto the console briefly, adjusting with instinctive precision to maintain balance. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, reflecting the shifting panels of the ship. Elias realized something vital. Rocco wasn't just strong, he was smart. More importantly, he trusted Elias enough to act on instinct without hesitation. Together, they were a combination the mercenaries had not anticipated. The trap worked perfectly. Two of the enemy ships collided with each other, miscalculating the narrow path, while the rest hesitated, unsure of which signature was the vanguard. Elias used the confusion to accelerate, propelling them through a side passage leading deeper into the asteroid field. Outside, the purple mist thickened, masking their movement and buying them precious time. Hours later, they reached a relatively stable area, a massive asteroid with a flat surface, surrounded by smaller rocks forming a natural barrier. Elias powered down the vanguard again, hoping the mercenaries would lose track of them. Rocco moved to the edge of the viewport, sniffing the air and scanning for any threats. Elias sat back, rubbing his face. The adrenaline left him exhausted, but a small sense of triumph lingered. They had survived this encounter, but he knew it was only the beginning. "You're incredible," he said quietly. Rocco tilted his head as if acknowledging the praise, but there was something else in his gaze, concern. Elias followed the alien's look and realized they weren't just being hunted, they were being studied. The mercenaries weren't after simple profit, they were tracking Rocco specifically. There was something valuable about him, something that made him more than just a target. Elias frowned. "I need to understand what they want," he murmured. He accessed the ship's analysis module, scanning for any clues. That's when he noticed the transmitter embedded in Rocco's shoulder. It was small, almost invisible, but unmistakable. Elias' stomach tightened. "They've been tracking you," he said softly. Rocco growled, a sound that seemed to mix frustration and fear. Elias' heart ached. Whatever these people had done, it had left its mark on the alien, on him, and on the future of both species. He examined the transmitter carefully, using a micro-tool to dislodge it. Rocco flinched slightly but did not resist, allowing Elias to work. When the device finally came free, he held it up, studying the intricate design. This wasn't standard mercenary tech. It was advanced, experimental, and highly classified. Elias realized the implications immediately. Rocco had been part of something bigger, something that humans were likely unaware of. "We're not just running from pirates," he said. Rocco's eyes met his, sharp and intelligent, as if to say he understood. Elias nodded. "We'll figure this out." Together. Elias couldn't help but feel that this was more than chance. This was destiny, in a way that humans often only imagined. When morning arrived, Elias knew they had to move again. The mercenaries wouldn't give up, and they needed to find safety beyond the reach of the known galaxy. He plotted a cautious route through uncharted space, relying on both the Vanguard's systems and Rocco's instincts. The alien seemed to guide him subtly, shifting posture and sniffing currents of energy that the ship's sensors could not detect. As they navigated deeper into the unknown, Elias thought about what had brought them together. One was human, relying on intellect, courage, and improvisation. The other was alien, relying on instincts, strength, and intelligence far beyond what humans could predict. Alone, neither would have survived this far, but together they had a chance. Elias reached out, placing a hand on the console where Rocco's paw had rested earlier. "We're a team now," he whispered. Rocco responded with a low, approving growl, and for a moment the tension eased. The mercenaries were out there, still hunting, still threatening, but the bond between human and alien was growing stronger, sharper than any weapon. The day ahead promised danger, discovery, and the relentless pursuit of survival. But Elias knew one thing with certainty. As long as Rocco was beside him, and as long as humanity's ingenuity guided them, they could face anything. Together, they would navigate the unknown, confront the hunters, and perhaps uncover a truth that neither had imagined. A truth that could change the fate of both species forever. And so they moved forward, deeper into the Trian expanse, human and alien bound by trust, instinct, and the shared knowledge that survival was not just about strength. It was about courage, intelligence, and the willingness to fight for each other. The adventure had only just begun. The Trian expanse stretched endlessly ahead, a canvas of darkness dotted with distant stars and drifting asteroids. Elias Kane adjusted the Vanguard's course, guided by a mixture of instinct, sensors, and Rocco's keen awareness. The mercenary fleet had been shaken off for now, but Elias knew their reprieve was temporary. He could feel it in the tension coiled like a spring inside him. Out here in the uncharted reaches of space, survival depended on both skill and luck. Rocco moved beside him, muscles rippling under his iridescent fur as he paced along the cockpit. The alien's amber eyes scanned the surroundings constantly, nostrils flaring as if catching scents humans could never detect. Elias had come to rely on Rocco in ways he had never imagined possible. The creature's instincts were uncanny, guiding them through gravitational anomalies and debris fields with almost preternatural precision. "We need to find somewhere safe," Elias murmured. "Somewhere we can breathe, think, and maybe figure out exactly what's going on with you." Rocco tilted his head, letting out a low growl that seemed more like an acknowledgement than a warning. Elias smiled faintly. Somehow this wolf-like alien had become his partner, his ally, and perhaps even his friend. Hours passed in careful navigation. The Vanguard sensors picked up something unusual near the edge of a dead star system, a massive object drifting in the void. Elias studied the readings. The structure appeared artificial, yet ancient, its energy signature faint but present. "Looks like we found ourselves a ghost," he said quietly. Rocco's ears twitched, and he padded toward the viewport, eyes narrowing at the object. As they approached, the true scale of the structure became apparent. It was a derelict research station, enormous and partially collapsed, orbiting a star that had long since burned out. The station's exterior was scarred, twisted metal jutting out like broken teeth. Sensors indicated residual energy sources and possible life signs, though faint. Elias felt a shiver of anticipation. "We'll dock carefully," he said. "We don't know what's inside, or if we'll like what we find." Rocco's tail swished slowly, a sign of alertness but also trust. Inside, the station was a graveyard of technology and memory. Corridors twisted in strange angles, walls scarred by fire and impact. Panels flickered with intermittent power, displaying alien symbols that Elias couldn't decipher. Rocco's growls echoed softly, a low warning that something was not right. Elias followed the alien's lead, noting his instincts were sharper than any sensor array on the Vanguard. They came upon a large chamber filled with data consoles, some still operational. Elias approached one cautiously, wiping dust from the interface. As he accessed the station's logs, a chilling realization hit him. The data recorded the capture and experimentation on Rocco's species. Subjects had been restrained, studied, and enhanced in ways that made Elias' stomach churn. Rocco's growl deepened, almost a growl of recognition, of memory. "They've been here," Elias whispered. "They did this to you." Rocco's ears flattened slightly, and he pressed his massive paw against the console, as if confirming Elias' interpretation. The bond between them deepened in that moment. Elias wasn't just a rescuer, he was a witness, a companion who now shared the weight of Rocco's past. As he scrolled through the logs, Elias discovered coordinates, hidden encrypted locations scattered across the galaxy. One set stood out, a hidden haven where Rocco's species might have survived, untouched by experimentation. Elias' pulse quickened. "This could be it," he said. Rocco's eyes glowed faintly, amber reflecting the console's flicker. The alien's posture shifted, signaling hope and cautious anticipation. But their moment of discovery was short-lived. Sensors picked up incoming ships, another mercenary squad, more numerous and organized than before. Elias' heart raced. "They found us," he muttered. Rocco's growl resonated through the chamber, low and dangerous. Elias had no illusions. These hunters were precise, experienced, and ruthless. They were not leaving empty-handed. Elias led Rocco back to the Vanguard, careful to avoid debris and unstable sections of the station. The alien followed with agility that made him almost silent, yet his presence exuded power. They reached the docking bay just as the mercenary ships emerged from the mist outside, closing in with frightening speed. Elias activated the Vanguard's engines, and the ship shuddered as it detached from the station. The chase was immediate. The mercenaries fired warning shots, their energy pulses sparking against the asteroids. Elias maneuvered through the field with a mixture of instinct and calculation. Rocco's keen senses detected shifts in energy and movement before the sensors could register them. Elias followed his guidance, weaving between massive rocks, using debris and shadows to mask their presence. One ship managed to fire a targeting beam, grazing the Vanguard's hull. Sparks flew, and alarms blared. Elias cursed under his breath. "Hold on, Rocco," he said. The alien crouched beside him, muscles tensing as if ready to spring into action. Elias realized with clarity that they were not just escaping, they were preparing for a fight. The Vanguard darted into a narrow passage between two massive asteroids. The mercenary ships hesitated, unable to follow without risking collision. Elias grinned. "Good thinking," he said to Rocco. The alien responded with a sharp, approving growl. Together they had created a temporary advantage, exploiting human ingenuity and alien instinct. But the real challenge awaited inside the dead star system. Elias had noticed faint gravitational anomalies in the scanner readings, areas where energy spikes could interfere with sensors and weapons. He planned to use this to their advantage. "We'll lead them there," he whispered. Rocco's tail swished in agreement, and they altered their course, heading toward the anomaly-laden region. As they approached, Elias could see the mercenary ships adjusting, attempting to match their trajectory. But the dead star's gravity field played havoc with their sensors. The Vanguard moved like a shadow, weaving unpredictably, while the mercenaries struggled to maintain formation. Elias felt a surge of exhilaration. This was the edge of human ingenuity, the ability to turn danger into opportunity. Rocco's role became crucial. The alien leaped from console to console, assisting with balance and subtly nudging the ship's controls with precise timing. Elias marveled at the coordination, realizing that Rocco's instincts were perfectly attuned to human reflexes. They were a team in the truest sense, predator and pilot united by circumstance and mutual trust. The anomaly region was chaotic. Asteroids shifted unpredictably, gravity wells distorted trajectories, and energy spikes interfered with sensors. Elias guided the Vanguard with precision, using every trick he knew, slingshot maneuvers, calculated bursts, and controlled evasions. Rocco responded instantly, sensing shifts in energy and alerting Elias with subtle movements. Together, they moved like a single entity, blending human intellect with alien instinct. The mercenary ships struggled. Two collided with asteroids, their weapons systems disabled, while others fired blindly, unable to track the Vanguard accurately. Elias' grin widened. "Not bad for a first mission," he said. Rocco responded with a low, approving growl, his amber eyes shining with excitement. They had survived the first real test, but Elias knew it was only the beginning. Once the immediate threat passed, Elias set a course for the coordinates revealed by the derelict station. Rocco watched intently as the stars stretched past, anticipation mirrored in his sharp gaze. Elias understood the stakes. They weren't just fleeing hunters, they were uncovering a path to Rocco's past and possibly to the survival of an entire species. As they traveled, Elias reflected on the events of the past hours. The bond between human and alien had strengthened in ways he had never anticipated. He realized that human ingenuity, courage, and empathy were not just survival tools, they were bridges. Bridges that could connect species, create alliances, and even inspire trust where fear once ruled. Rocco padded along the cockpit, settling briefly beside Elias. The alien's presence was a reminder of what was at stake, not just for himself but for his kind, and for the potential of cooperation between humans and other intelligent life. Elias reached out, placing a hand on the console near Rocco's paw. "We're in this together," he whispered. Rocco's low growl resonated like agreement, a sound filled with understanding and shared purpose. The hours ahead promised danger, discovery, and the relentless pursuit of survival. Elias knew the mercenaries would regroup, perhaps even return stronger. But for now, they had a path, a clue to Rocco's origins, and a fragile hope that they could turn this peril into opportunity. As the Vanguard glided through the dead star system, the stars casting pale light on the hull, Elias felt a sense of determination. Human resilience, ingenuity, and empathy were not just traits. They were weapons, shields, and guiding lights. And with Rocco by his side, he had an ally whose instincts and strength complemented his own. The future was uncertain, filled with threats both known and unimaginable. But Elias Kane understood one thing clearly. Survival in the galaxy depended not just on power, but on courage, intelligence, and the willingness to trust others, even those from entirely different worlds. And so the Vanguard continued through the silent expanse, human and alien bound by trust, determination, and the promise of discovery. The adventure was far from over, but for the first time, Elias felt that together they could face anything. Elias Kane adjusted the Vanguard's trajectory as the purple-tinged nebula gave way to a dense asteroid belt known as Zera's Ring. The belt was notorious among pilots for its unpredictable gravitational shifts, massive floating debris, and hidden energy anomalies. Most ships avoided it entirely. Elias, however, had no choice. The mercenary fleet had tracked them relentlessly, and this treacherous region offered the only chance to turn the tables. Rocco's amber eyes scanned the chaotic field, muscles tensing with anticipation. The alien seemed to understand the danger instinctively, moving with the grace of a predator that had survived countless threats. "We can use this to our advantage," Elias murmured. "You ready?" Rocco let out a low growl, the sound resonating with determination. Elias smiled faintly. Somehow, this wolf-like alien had become more than a companion. He was a partner in survival, capable of predicting movements and sensing danger that even the most sophisticated sensors might miss. As they entered the belt, Elias began weaving the vanguard through tight clusters of rocks. The mercenary ships followed, confident at first, but quickly struggling with the unpredictable gravity. Elias relied on his knowledge of physics, using gravitational slingshots around massive asteroids to gain bursts of speed. Rocco, sensing shifts in energy, adjusted his position beside the control console, nudging Elias subtly when calculations needed instinctive timing. Together, they moved as one, human intellect guided by alien instinct. The first engagement came quickly. One of the mercenary ships fired a pulse cannon, the beam slicing through a nearby asteroid and sending shards hurtling toward the vanguard. Elias twisted the controls sharply, narrowly avoiding the impact. Rocco's reflexes were instantaneous. He pressed against the console, steadying himself and Elias as the ship shuddered violently. Sparks flew from a damaged panel, but neither pilot nor alien panicked. They had survived worse. Elias gritted his teeth. "We can't keep running like this forever. We need a plan to hit them where it hurts." Rocco emitted a short bark-like sound, eyes glinting with understanding. Elias nodded. "All right, let's make them think we're trapped." He adjusted the ship's trajectory, guiding the vanguard toward a narrow chasm between two massive asteroids. The mercenary ships pursued, unaware of the trap. As the vanguard entered the chasm, the gravitational anomalies intensified. Elias activated decoy projections, scattering false energy signatures to confuse the enemy. The first ship miscalculated its path, smashing against a floating boulder, while another collided with a debris cluster. Elias grinned, adrenaline surging. "Not bad, Rocco," he said. The alien responded with a low growl, ears twitching, muscles coiled like springs. But the mercenaries adapted quickly. A smaller squadron attempted to flank them, moving unpredictably through the belt. Elias realized they would need to combine brains and brawn, human ingenuity and Rocco's physical abilities. He initiated a risky maneuver, diving the vanguard through a series of rapid slingshots around the largest asteroids. Rocco's instincts were invaluable, predicting gravitational pulls, energy shifts, and even enemy targeting patterns. The belt became a chaotic battlefield. Rocks collided, beams flashed, and energy shields shimmered under strain. Elias' mind worked furiously, calculating every angle, anticipating enemy movements, and using every bit of knowledge from years of piloting. Rocco leaped, pawing at controls instinctively, nudging buttons with precision only an alien predator could manage. Together, they moved like a single entity, blending strategy with instinct. One mercenary ship attempted a direct assault, closing in with weapons primed. Elias activated the Vanguard's energy dispersal system, reflecting and redirecting the incoming beam into a nearby cluster of asteroids. The impact caused a chain reaction, scattering debris and creating a temporary barrier. Rocco growled approvingly, muscles tensing in readiness for any residual threat. Elias smiled despite the tension. This was the essence of human adaptability, thinking, reacting, and improvising under pressure. As the engagement continued, Elias realized the opportunity to turn the tide. The mercenaries were skilled but predictable in their overconfidence. He led the Vanguard into a gravitational vortex near the edge of the belt, a swirling anomaly that distorted space and sensor readings. The enemy ships struggled to navigate, becoming disoriented and vulnerable. Elias accelerated, using the vortex to slingshot around massive asteroids and strike from unexpected angles. Rocco, sensing the optimal moment, leapt across the console with precise timing, hitting a control panel that triggered the ship's external defense systems. Automated pulse cannons activated, targeting the nearest enemy craft. One ship was disabled instantly, drifting uselessly into the void. Elias' grin widened. "That's teamwork," he said. Rocco growled softly, ears twitching, tail swishing with satisfaction. The battle reached its climax as the remaining mercenary ships attempted a coordinated attack. Elias relied on his knowledge of both human tactics and Rocco's instincts. They created a pattern of deception, feinting retreat while leading the attackers into a narrow corridor lined with massive asteroids. The confined space left little room for maneuvering, and the mercenaries' weapons were less effective. Elias executed a series of rapid maneuvers, bouncing the vanguard off gravity wells and debris clusters. Rocco's timing was perfect, shifting weight and paw placement to assist with stability and control. In the chaos, Elias noticed a key weakness. The enemy ship's energy synchronization relied on a shared signal. He tapped into the Vanguard's communication system, using a crude but effective method to disrupt their coordination. The result was immediate. The mercenary ships collided with each other, and the surrounding debris, their formation shattered. Elias took a deep breath, heart pounding. Rocco emitted a victorious growl, muscles relaxing slightly as the immediate threat diminished. The battle was over, at least for now. Elias set a cautious course through the remaining belt, moving toward the coordinates revealed by the derelict station. He allowed himself a moment to reflect. Humans were rarely the strongest beings in the galaxy, but their ingenuity, courage, and willingness to adapt gave them an edge that no brute force could match. Rocco's abilities complemented Elias' skills perfectly, creating a synergy neither could achieve alone. As they traveled, Elias reviewed the station logs in his mind. Rocco's species had been subjected to experimentation, captured and studied for reasons beyond human understanding. The aliens' intelligence, strength, and instincts were not merely natural. They had been enhanced, observed, and perhaps even weaponized. Elias shuddered at the thought but also felt a growing determination. They would not allow Rocco's kind to remain victims. They would survive and they would reclaim their freedom. Rocco settled beside the console, muscles coiled but relaxed, eyes fixed on the stars outside. Elias reached out, resting a hand near the alien's paw. "We're a team," he said quietly, "and we're going to see this through." Rocco responded with a low growl, a sound filled with understanding and shared purpose. It was a moment of quiet unity in a galaxy filled with chaos and danger. Despite the victory, Elias knew the mercenaries would return, likely stronger and more determined. But he also knew something profound. Human courage, ingenuity, and empathy were weapons in their own right. They could outthink, outmaneuver, and survive in ways that brute force could not anticipate. Rocco's instincts amplified these traits, making them a formidable combination. The Vanguard moved deeper into uncharted space, the stars stretching past in endless streaks of light. Elias felt a sense of exhilaration and responsibility. They were no longer just surviving, they were shaping the future. Rocco's presence reminded him that intelligence, instinct, and trust could bridge the gap between species. Together, they represented a new kind of hope, one that relied not on domination but on cooperation, courage, and adaptability. As the day wore on, Elias planned their next steps. The derelict station had provided clues, but much remained unknown. Rocco's species might still exist somewhere, hidden from those who sought to exploit them. Elias knew they had to find that haven to ensure the survival of an entire intelligent race. But first, they needed to navigate the perils of space, outwit their pursuers, and continue building the trust that had already saved them multiple times. The bond between human and alien had grown stronger with every maneuver, every shared danger, and every instinctive action. Elias realized that survival was not about acting alone. It was about recognizing strength in others, even those vastly different from oneself. Rocco had taught him that instincts could guide decisions as effectively as logic, and Elias had shown Rocco that trust in humans was possible. Together, they were more than pilot and passenger. They were allies, friends, and a force to be reckoned with. As night fell across the Trian expanse, the Vanguard glided silently through the dense asteroid field. The stars reflected off Rocco's iridescent fur, creating a shimmer that made the alien appear almost ethereal. Elias watched him, feeling a sense of wonder. They had faced overwhelming odds, yet here they were, alive and moving forward. He knew the challenges ahead would be greater, but he also knew that together they could face them. Elias activated the ship's long-range sensors, scanning for potential routes and safe havens. Rocco remained alert, muscles coiled, ready for any sudden threat. They were a team, united by circumstance, trust, and a shared determination to survive. The mercenaries might return, but Elias had a plan, and Rocco had instincts that could turn the tide in ways no one else could predict. As the Vanguard moved further into uncharted space, Elias felt a surge of determination. Humanity's ingenuity, courage, and adaptability were not just tools for survival. They were a statement, a testament to what humans could achieve even in the most hostile environments. With Rocco by his side, Elias was ready to face whatever the galaxy had in store, confident that together, they could overcome any obstacle. The adventure was far from over. The mercenaries were still out there, the secrets of Rocco's species still largely unknown, and the challenges of uncharted space still looming. But Elias Kane understood something vital. Survival depended not only on strength, but on courage, intelligence, and the willingness to trust and fight for one another. And in Rocco, he had found a partner who embodied all of those qualities, a living reminder that humanity's greatest strength often lay not in domination, but in collaboration, ingenuity, and heart. With the Vanguard gliding steadily through the asteroid belt, Elias allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. They had survived impossible odds, outsmarted a mercenary fleet, and strengthened a bond that transcended species. The galaxy was vast, filled with unknown dangers, but for the first time, Elias felt that they were not merely surviving, they were shaping their destiny. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and the Vanguard moved like a shadow through the chaos, human and alien united in purpose, determination, and the unspoken promise that together, they would face whatever came next. Elias Kane tightened his grip on the Vanguard's controls as the stars shifted around them. After days navigating uncharted space, evading the mercenary fleets, and surviving the deadly traps of Zera's ring, he finally reached the coordinates from the derelict station. The sensors flickered, confirming the presence of a habitable planet hidden behind a dense cloud of radiation and asteroids, perfectly concealed from anyone searching blindly. Elias' heart raced with anticipation. Rocco moved beside him, muscles coiled but relaxed, eyes scanning the swirling clouds around the planet. The alien's amber gaze reflected both hope and caution. Elias reached over, resting a hand near Rocco's paw. "This is it," he whispered. "This is where your people could still be alive." Rocco's low growl resonated like agreement, and for the first time in days, Elias felt a sense of calm. The Vanguard descended carefully, threading through the planet's radiation clouds. The ship's shields glowed under the pressure, but Elias' careful navigation kept them intact. Rocco's instincts were invaluable, warning him of weak zones in the atmosphere and guiding him through the safest corridors. The bond between human and alien had grown stronger with every obstacle, and now it was being tested at the final stage. As they breached the clouds, the planet's surface revealed itself. Vast forests of crystalline trees, rivers that shimmered with bioluminescent life, and valleys filled with creatures Elias had never imagined. The planet radiated life and energy, untouched by human exploitation or mercenary greed. Elias exhaled, marveling at the sight. "Your home, it's still beautiful," he said softly. Rocco's eyes scanned the horizon, and he let out a long, low howl, a sound filled with relief, recognition, and pride. They landed the Vanguard on a plateau overlooking a shimmering valley. Elias powered down the engines, letting the silence of the planet settle around them. Rocco leapt gracefully from the cockpit, sniffing the ground and testing the air. His movements were cautious but confident. Elias followed, watching the alien move as if reacquainting himself with the land he had been taken from. The sense of history and connection radiated from Rocco, and Elias felt honored to witness it. As they explored, they discovered evidence of Rocco's species living in hidden enclaves, carefully avoiding the attention of predators and explorers. Elias felt a mixture of awe and responsibility. These beings were intelligent, resourceful, and deeply connected to their planet, yet vulnerable to those who sought to exploit them. "We need to be careful," he said. "We can't reveal them yet, not until we understand the threats out there." Rocco's ears twitched, and he growled softly, signaling agreement. Hours later, Elias accessed a small communication console left behind by the ancient explorers of this system. He discovered encrypted transmissions detailing attempts to locate and capture members of Rocco's species. The implications were clear. The mercenaries were not acting alone. A larger organization had sought to exploit these beings for their strength, intelligence, and rare biology. Elias' jaw tightened. Humanity had always claimed to explore and protect, but greed and ambition often shadowed discovery. Rocco approached Elias, pressing his head gently against his shoulder, a gesture of trust and shared determination. Elias smiled, feeling the weight of their bond. "We'll protect your people," he whispered. I won't let them fall into the wrong hands again. Rocco's tail swished slowly, a sign of approval, and Elias felt a surge of resolve. Together, they would ensure survival, not just for one alien, but for an entire species. The following days were spent scouting and mapping the hidden enclaves. Elias marveled at the intelligence and adaptability of Rocco's species. They had built complex shelters within the natural formations of the planet, utilizing bioluminescent plants for light and energy, and they had developed subtle warning systems to avoid predators. It was a civilization in miniature, thriving quietly, surviving through ingenuity and cooperation. Elias felt a deep sense of admiration. Humanity could learn from this. Rocco's people had survived not through brute force, but through intelligence, courage, and teamwork, the very traits Elias held dear. Night fell over the planet, and Elias and Rocco sat atop a crystalline ridge, overlooking the shimmering valley. Stars reflected on the forests below, creating a tapestry of light and shadow. Elias felt a sense of peace he hadn't known since leaving Earth. Rocco sat beside him, muscles relaxed, eyes reflecting the distant stars. "We've done it," Elias whispered. "We made it here and we'll make sure they survive." Rocco's growl was soft, almost content, and Elias smiled. The tranquility was temporary. Sensors on the Vanguard detected a faint signal, an unknown ship approaching from outside the system. Elias' pulse quickened. The mercenaries had returned, drawn by desperation and greed. They were relentless, willing to risk everything to capture Rocco and his species. Elias' new confrontation was inevitable. He turned to Rocco, who understood instantly. The alien's muscles tensed, ready to defend, but Elias shook his head. "Not alone," he said. "We do this together." Rocco responded with a low growl, a promise of cooperation and strength. When the mercenary ship entered the planet's orbit, Elias had already prepared defenses. He had studied the terrain, mapping escape routes, natural barriers, and energy sources that could be weaponized. Rocco moved with him, instinct guiding strategy. Together, they set traps and ambush points, using the planet itself as a shield and weapon. The mercenaries, overconfident and unaware of the terrain, were at a disadvantage. The battle was tense. Energy beams illuminated the night sky, bouncing off crystalline trees and jagged rocks. Elias piloted the Vanguard with precision, striking when the enemy least expected. Rocco moved with lethal grace, leaping and striking in ways no human could anticipate, disabling weapons and systems with instinctive accuracy. Together, they outmaneuvered the mercenaries, turning fear into strategy and chaos into advantage. As the confrontation reached its peak, Elias realized the true HFY moment. Human ingenuity and courage, combined with trust and cooperation across species, could overcome even superior technology and numbers. Rocco's instincts complemented human strategy perfectly, and together they were a force no one had expected. One by one, the mercenary ships were disabled or forced to retreat. Elias felt a surge of triumph, not pride, but the satisfaction of defending life and intelligence against exploitation. With the mercenaries gone, Elias and Rocco surveyed the planet below. Rocco's species emerged cautiously from hiding, their eyes wide with curiosity and cautious recognition. Elias approached slowly, hands raised in peace. "You're safe now," he said. "They won't hurt you anymore." Rocco moved ahead, nudging his people forward, showing that this human could be trusted. The alien's gestures bridged the gap between species, allowing cautious trust to form. Elias spent the following days helping Rocco's people understand the threat that had pursued them and sharing strategies for long-term survival. He introduced simple technology that would allow them to detect intruders and communicate across the planet efficiently, without interfering with their natural environment. Rocco's species adapted quickly, their intelligence and ingenuity evident in how they integrated the tools with their natural abilities. Elias realized that they had survived not by force but by cooperation and cleverness, the very essence of HFY. As he prepared to leave the planet, Elias felt a pang of both sadness and pride. Rocco approached, pressing his massive head against Elias' shoulder once more. "You've done more than I ever imagined," Elias whispered. Rocco's low growl vibrated through him, a sound of gratitude and trust. Elias knew this was a bond that would last, a connection between species that symbolized hope for the future. The Vanguard lifted off, gliding silently through the clouds and asteroids. Elias looked back at the planet, at Rocco standing among his people, safe and free. He realized that humanity's strength was not measured by conquest or technology alone, but by courage, ingenuity, empathy, and the ability to form alliances. even with those entirely different from themselves. Rocco's species had survived through adaptability, trust, and cleverness, and humans had proven that they could rise to meet any challenge with heart and intelligence. As the vanguard moved into uncharted space, Elias reflected on the journey. They had faced mercenaries, navigated deadly asteroid belts, uncovered secrets of a species nearly lost to exploitation, and formed a bond that transcended worlds. The galaxy was vast and filled with unknown threats, but Elias knew that courage, ingenuity, and empathy would always be humanity's greatest weapons. Rocco had taught him lessons about instinct, trust, and resilience, and Elias had shown Rocco that humans could be allies and protectors, not just threats. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, a reminder of the unknown and the potential for discovery. Elias felt a sense of purpose. Humanity was capable of survival, ingenuity, and kindness, even in the face of danger. Rocco's people were safe, at least for now, and the bond between human and alien had forged a new path forward. It was a testament to what could be achieved when intelligence, courage, and empathy converged, crossing the boundaries of species and experience. Elias activated the Vanguard's long-range sensors, scanning for further anomalies, further challenges, and further opportunities to explore, protect, and understand. Rocco padded beside him, muscles relaxed but ready, eyes reflecting the stars and the promise of new horizons. Together, they had changed the course of fate for an entire species, proving that survival depended not only on strength, but on courage, intelligence, and the willingness to work together. As they moved forward into the vastness of space, Elias allowed himself a rare smile. The adventure had been harrowing, the dangers relentless, but humanity had once again risen to meet the challenge. Rocco had survived, his people were safe, and Elias had witnessed firsthand the power of trust, cooperation, and ingenuity, the true essence of humanity. The Vanguard glided silently through the cosmos, human and alien united by purpose, intelligence, and courage. Ahead lay unknown worlds, unseen challenges, and the endless promise of discovery. Elias Kane knew that whatever awaited them, together they could face it, and that was the true strength of humanity. And for Rocco, for the first time in a long time, the galaxy felt safe, filled with allies, hope, and the knowledge that trust between species could overcome fear, cruelty, and the darkness of space. Elias looked at him, whispered softly, "Safe with me." "Always," Rocco's low, resonant growl answered him, a sound full of life, trust, and the certainty that together they had won more than a battle, they had reclaimed freedom. The stars stretched infinitely before them, and the Vanguard moved forward, carrying hope, courage, and the enduring spirit of humanity into the unknown.